Hello, so today we're going to do part 2 of our 8-part series of the basic concepts of hammer. Today we got the entry. So we're going to be discussing what is the entry, different ways to think about the entry, my personal thoughts on the entry, and also some drills you can do and some special strength stuff you can do. So why the entry is so important is because just like in any throw, if your entry is off or wrong or doesn't feel right, the rest of the throw is screwed. Now also, the beauty of hammer is that you have multiple turns to try and fix what you've done, but you can only do so much. If your entry is really screwed up, it's not going to cut it. You're not going to throw as far as you could. All right? So, the entry. So last part we discussed the grip and the winds. So if you want to check that out, and then come back to this video, it'll make a lot more sense. So today we're not going to be discussing any of the winds. We're going to be going from, so you did your second or third whatever wind, and now we're putting the hammer in and getting ready to turn and make your first turn. So turns are going to be the next part. So I'm not going to actually get into the actual turns. Some of it will be because the entry and the first turn are obviously connected. You can't really talk about one without the other that well. So there will be some parts I'll be touching on in the turn, but I'm not going to be going in depth and anything. I'm just going to be talking about the first turn and related to the entry. So yeah, third part will be turns, but today just the entry. All right, so the entry. So last time we talked about how when you wind, you want the most of the pressure in your right hand. So I'm speaking as a right-handed thrower. So when you wind here, all right, now when you're here, you don't want a lot of movement, all right? You want to be solid, not stiff, but solid, all right? A solid base. All right, so you're here. As you go in, you want to think pushing out. The hammer is all about radius and how far away you can get that hammer. It's kind of like the principles for discus. You want that discus as far away from you as possible so that hammer can accelerate. If you're tight and have bent arms and try and put it in, you're going to lead to a lot more left side dominance, which is bad because then your orbit's going to be off. Chances are your left hand and left shoulder are really going to hurt, and you're just not going to be able to move it that fast because now you're turning faster than the hammer. And the whole point of the entry and just hammer in general and throwing in general, you want the implement to move faster than you. That's going to be a different part in this series that I'm going to talk about. It doesn't just apply to hammer, it applies to everything. But you got to keep that concept in the back of your mind whenever we talk about the different parts and stuff of the throw throughout this series. All right. The number one rule is the implement must move faster than your body. All right. So, and I'll get to that in way more detail. Don't worry. All right. But for right now, let's concentrate on the entry. So I'm here. I put it in right here. All right. So from the side. So if I'm throwing that way, if I'm throwing that way, so I'm here. No, wait. Yeah. Sorry. That way. And from the side, I'm here and I push it out. And you notice when I push it out, my body's going back to counter it. So if I'm facing that way and throwing behind me, I'm here and I want that hammer and that counter to happen immediately. So I'm here. I don't want it to let me pull me forward. All right. Now you don't have to be this exaggerated because you want to push the entry as hard as possible because it will make the actual first turn easier. But you don't want to make it so hard that you can't actually counter it and move it and you just lose control. So you just want to make sure you have tension in the wire. And what I mean by that is you want to feel like a slight pull in the wire. And like if you're pulling a rubber band apart and you feel that tension in there, that's the kind of feeling you want. When you throw. Anytime you don't feel that in the wire, you've lost tension and you messed up somewhere in the throw. All right, so you're here you push to the side, and now I'm back. And so remember we talked about you want the pressure in the right hand, not the left. If you go in the left, you're going to try and pull. All right? You want it right side dominant so you can establish a good connection. Now, how high, how low, where do you want to put it in? It depends. 4-turners, usually I like to say keep it flat, kind of like chest, like clavicle level. 3-turners, a little lower just to establish a higher high point when you go. Just because, as we talked about last video, you have one less turn than a 4-turner to make an orbit. So you have to have a little more of exaggerated orbit at the start. But for 4-turners, you want to just put it in, and you want to keep this left side locked. All right, you don't want to let it move side to side really that much. As you get better and better and better, you can play around with some things. Excuse me. I know some people like to use the left and right hand simultaneously, but for beginners, I like to just tell them feel the right, push out that way. This left side is going to feel like a block and shot and disc, and you're basically blocking your left side. So you don't want it to move, let you move. And you're basically pushing your right side into an immovable object. And what that's going to do is it's going to stop you from pulling, and it's going to make you a lot more solid and have something to push against. All right, so if I'm here and my left side's moving, I can't push against anything. It's like if I'm trying to push a wall and it's made out of jello, I can push that easy. But if it's like a solid brick wall, I can't push it. And you want to be that solid brick wall with this left side. And this right side turns into it. All right? So that kind of was a little bit of a lesson in pushing as well. We're going to get to that. Push versus pull and all that. That's a separate part. But that's a little intro to it. Because, we can't talk about any of this stuff just as one thing. Everything has to connect together, all these principles. So I may be introducing some concepts, a little sooner, but you can't talk one without the other and vice versa. Everything, just like in any other throw, works as a system. All right? So now that we got that out of the way, we're here, super balanced, and you see how when I go in, I'm long. So I'm not just here. I'm reaching out. And as I'm reaching out, now I don't have anything to counter myself. You want to be a little further back than this. But we're going to explain that a little later with the counter. But just like we talked about in the winds, when the hammer's behind you, you want to be a little forward. When the hammer's in front of you, you want to be a little back and sitting against it. Now, I'm not going to go into very much detail on that because that's its own separate video on the counter and stuff. All right, this is just the entry. So that's basically it for the entry, pretty much. Some people don't like the out and like to just go around and then just connect here. Me personally, I don't like that because I think that establishes a lazy throw. You want to build that tension early and actively work and actively use your muscles and everything to help it stay up. Now, remember, 3-turners, you want a little bit of a low point, a little bit earlier, just so you can, not earlier, but just a little more than a 4-turner. Now, some really good 4-turners do have a little lower and more exaggerated high point and low point in their entry to their first turn. That's a very, very hard thing to do, and you have to be really skilled, really disciplined, and really strong to do that. All right? Generally, I like to keep it flat because it's just a lot easier, and it's just easier, honestly. And it establishes a flatter first turn, which makes establishing, everything easier. Putting something in flat, it's a lot easier to counter. It won't produce as much speed, but that you don't want that on your first turn. We're going to get to that in the turn video. But yeah, that's pretty much it. So things you want to avoid, first of all, sorry, I forgot that part, is you don't want to feel a lot of the tension in your left. You want to feel it in the right. You don't want to feel nothing in your left because then you're just doing a single wind. You will feel something in your left hand because, you know, that's where the handle is touching in the immediate area. But you want to feel like that right is dictating the movement of your wind to your entry. All right. So you do use your left. I'm not saying don't use it. I'm saying don't be too exaggerated. You know, just like in shot and disc, you don't want to be here and just fly out the back because then you're just set up for failure. It's the same thing here. You want to use your right side. The only difference between shot and disc and hammer is that shot and disc, the lower body starts. Here, the hammer starts the throw. So the hammer is the thing that throws you. You do not throw the hammer because the hammer will always be able to move faster than you can. I think, what was it? The world record by Yuri Sadiq, I think it left his hand at like over 70 miles per hour. You cannot move 70 miles per hour. The hammer can. All right? So the worst thing you can do from here to here and throughout the entire throw is try and control the hammer. Once you put it in, you're just trying to resist it from pulling you forward or making you go off balance. You just want to be a solid block. And the hammer is just turning and you're just turning around the hammer. All right, we're going to get to that with the turns and stuff. So I'm not going to get in deep with that, but yeah, so some special strength stuff. You can just like with the heavy winds, you can do that and then just do an entry. You can do single arm winds here and then put it in. Do it with the left hand as well. Here. I did that the wrong way, but I'm also not really that good of a hammer thrower. I just know a lot more than I actually am capable of throwing. And yeah, so also one more warning. If you don't know you're pulling, if you just take a video of yourself, if your left shoulder is higher than your right, you're pulling. That's usually the biggest thing I see when I try and see if someone's pulling. The other thing is if your low point and high point are in the wrong place. So the low point for if you're right side dominant, which you should be, is right in your belly button. If you're left side dominant, it's gonna be here, somewhere around this area. And now your orbit's the opposite way. So when you go to release, instead of it being like here and going, now it's here and you're throwing it like that instead of here and there. But we're going to get to all that. But just so you know, when you're winding and entering. So if you wind and you go like that and your shoulder's up, if you go here and go like that, that's not a good thing. All right, you want to feel the pressure in your right side doing the work. All right, so hope this helps. This will be a short video, but I feel like it deserved its own. And other than that, thanks for watching. Part 3, the turns, is coming next week, and see y'all later. Bye.